Now, folks, without further ado, he is known as the only liberal talk show host in the state of Nevada. And I happen to be a big fan of his show, 2 to 4 on Saturdays on KDWN.
As am I, Brian.
Yes, 2 to 4 on Saturdays on KDWN. He does raise a little hell, none other than Doug Basham. Doug, thanks so much for joining us, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great, Brian. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
I'm doing okay. I got to start with this story because we haven't talked about it, Doug, yet on the show. What do you make of the clown, Vice President, the stiff, as I like to call him, Jerk Circle Pence, walking into this company, everybody wearing a mask? There wasn't one person there that was not wearing a mask. There are people talking to him.
It wasn't just a company, Brian. It was the Mayo Clinic he rolled into.
Right, but yeah, you're right. But people are talking to him through these masks, and the entire visit he doesn't put on a mask. Doug, what do you make of that?
Well, it's just another demonstration of what a consummate lickspittle Mike Pence has become. I mean, he did that for an audience of one, and this is yet another manifestation of what I've always called Donald Trump's first cardinal original sin with regards to this virus. He didn't take it seriously in the beginning. He's still not taking it seriously now. And I think Mike Pence is just so terrified of being dropped from the ticket that he does stupid things like that to appease Donald Trump. Meanwhile, it sends a message, rules are for thee, but not for me.
You're right. I mean, and then the excuse that the White House makes, oh, well, the people underneath the vice president, it was their fault because they didn't offer him a mask. Whatever happened to leadership and a little bit of logic and some intelligence? I guess my question is, how dumb really is our vice president, Doug?
Well, I don't think Mike Pence is a stupid person. He's just become such a lemming to Trump that he does things that normally he wouldn't do. I mean, I have no love for Mike Pence, but his fealty to Donald Trump is just sickening. And I mean, what bothered me most about that story is that the Mayo Clinic deleted a tweet they had whereby they had said in the tweet that they told Mike Pence to wear a mask. And then they deleted it. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, why
you're
does
right.
everybody bow down to this orange clown in the White House? I mean, it's just like Rick Wilson said, everything Trump touches dies.
You're right. Jared Kushner did an interview this morning, who, by the way, has never accomplished anything in his life to expend his daddy's money. So Kushner did an interview this morning. On the record on Fox, he said, quote, "We have reached our goal and surpassed our goal with testing." I said that, and my mouth is wide open, and I'm like, did he really just say that, Doug? There is not one hospital and not one non-biased politician that would agree with that statement. Can you believe that Jared Kushner said that this morning?
Yeah, because he's just mirroring what Donald Trump has said. I mean, that again, what I said last week to JD, that was his one job, to get testing being produced and distributed. And so what does he do with his one main job? He schleps it off to governors. I mean, he is unfit, he is incompetent, he is ambivalent, he is lazy, and he is just the wrong. You couldn't have a worse person in charge of this pandemic.
I agree. Let's go to another subject that I know you'll enjoy talking about. That would be the idea of disinfectant. So, as you know, and I know you talked about this on your show, and I listened to it, and I enjoyed it, the stupidity of Donald Trump and even bringing up that discussion involving disinfectant and the UV rays and all this other stuff. So we talked a little bit about Howard Stern's comments, because as you know, Howard Stern officially endorsed Joe Biden. And say what you want about Howard Stern. He's an influential guy still. He has millions and millions of listeners, whether it's satellite or extraterrestrial radio. He has a ton of listeners. So with that being said, Howard Stern goes on the air, and a tongue-in-cheek joke, and he says, how about, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he says, how about all these Trump supporters go down to these coronavirus rallies, inject yourself disinfectant, and die? And I said it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke. What do you make of those comments? What do you make of the coronavirus statements of Donald Trump? And do you think Howard Stern's comments deserve to be attacked, or do you back them, or are you okay with it?
Well, Howard Stern made his reputation by saying controversial things. So anybody that's surprised or is going to jump on him for this one is obviously another Donald Trump lickspittle, because Howard Stern's been doing this for years. That's how he made his bones. As far as the actual Trump situation, again, the original comment was bad enough. But what was worse were the ensuing lies. First of all, it was the media that was taking him out of context. Hello, we have him on tape. So then their second excuse was, he was being sarcastic. Well, no, in the middle of a global pandemic is not the time to try out new comedy material. I mean, it's just so inappropriate. And then his third excuse was he tweeted, they said I was talking to Dr. Birx. No, I was talking to William Bryant. We have him on tape saying, Deborah, have you heard of this being a cure? I mean, he lies when we have him on tape saying the exact opposite. That is the danger in Donald Trump. He has no shame. He will lie about everything all the time. And why people continue to believe him or trust him. It's like the one soundbite I played months ago of a lady saying, well, I know he lies, but I still trust him. It's like, what kind of an idiot are you?
Hey, Doug, I want to switch gears a little bit on you here because obviously coming up after our show today around noon, they're going to re-air Steve Sisolak. He did a national interview, of course, with Good Morning America on ABC addressing what we are going to do as far as Nevada and a timeline. What are you, as far as your opinion regarding the governor and his approach to all this and, a possibility about projected timelines and what we could endure here in the state of Nevada and, of course, here in the city of Las Vegas?
Well, I hate to sound like I'm dodging a question, but I heard you guys discussing it in the first hour, and I really don't have anything to add because I agree with everything you said.
Okay.
Well, that's fair.
It makes sense, yeah.
That's fair.
Because we did have very sensible points that we made,
I have
when it came to that.
I have to go back to this.
Yes.
The Wayne Allen Roots of the world, and by the way, we're going to be discussing him coming up at the bottom of the hour. But, guys like that who basically want to paint themselves out to be these heroes because they have these stupid protesters, I like to call them, Trump rallies, and they think they're doing something great, and they're patriots. They call themselves patriots, some of them holding up Donald Trump signs, not practicing social distancing, Make America Great Again 2020. What these dopes don't realize is that, number one, they're basically protesting the administration's own guidelines. That's number one. And number two, what they don't understand is they're putting everyone else in harm's way by behaving the way they're behaving. Now, I know what some people are going to say, well, a lot of those people were in their cars. Okay, sure. But most of these protests across the country have not been in cars. A lot of them have been out and about, not practicing social distancing. So I guess my question is this. Do some of these idiots really think that if they hold up a Donald Trump sign and yell, open up the state, open up my country again, do they really think that that's going to change Governor Sisolak's mind or anybody's mind, Doug?
I would have to say that probably yes, that these people are living inside the media bubble and echo chamber created by Trump's state-run propaganda ministry. And number one, the reason they're out there is because they're following the lead of Trump, and they don't take this seriously. I mean, I love the guy that was standing there with the sign that said, COVID-19 is a lie, and he had a mask and protective gear on. I mean, if that doesn't describe the quintessential Donald Trump supporter, I don't know what does. I mean, the cognitive dissonance was just jaw-dropping.
But quickly,
the whole thing is they don't take this any more seriously than Trump does.
Quickly, we had this. I agree with you, Doug. Quickly, we had this idiot on yesterday. I don't even remember the organization he was from, but he's trying to get people to sign petitions in order to, get Sisolak removed from office. And I asked him. I said, "Why don't you just admit, this is partisan? That this is a conservative group. You're trying to get Sisolak removed.
Fight for Nevada.
Fight for Nevada." And he wouldn't admit that he's partisan. And I said, "But you're trying to remove a Democratic governor." And then I said, "Are you trying to push forth anything to the left and push forth that legislation?" He couldn't name me one thing. And this was the thing, Doug, that drove me crazy. I don't know if you heard the interview yesterday, but I said, "What's your biggest criticism with Sisolak?" And he said, "Testing." I said, "Okay, well, that's a problem that we have throughout the country. So are you also willing to take all the Republican governors out of office too?" And he said, "No," because he's a dope. And I hung up on the guy, and I just don't understand people like that. They can't even form a sentence. And, when I asked them, well, what would you do differently if you disagree with Sisolak? Besides, let's open up the state right now. They really don't know what else to say. And when I tell them, would you have left the strip open this whole time? I mean, some of the dopes say yes, but most of them say no. And I say, well, why can't you give the governor credit for that? Doug, isn't this just about partisan politics? Aren't these people that are attacking Sisolak, doesn't it have nothing to do with the coronavirus or Sisolak's response? Doesn't it have everything to do with the fact that they're right-wing hacks and they just want to remove him from office because he's got a D next to his name?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's politics has devolved to the point where we're even beyond the point of partisanship. Everything has to be in homage and tribute to Donald Trump. And as you say, the cognitive dissonance comes in because what they're really protesting is his administration's own guidelines. But the problem is they listen to his media, and his media is clamoring for everything to reopen, and so that they take their lead from them too.
So, Doug, what do you think about this? Of course, that 3-phase plan that was put out by the federal government, by Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, and, of course, Mike Pence and the entire response team up there in Washington, D.C. But now I got to get your reaction, Doug. You've got states like Georgia, like South Carolina, like Tennessee, and to an extent, obviously, DeSantis down in Florida, where they are opening up businesses, where they are actually making steps already. We're still in late April. And they're already taking steps to open up certain aspects of society down there without even reaching what phase 1 of the national plan that the response team put forward. I got to get your take on the fact that those states are already deciding that, hey, we're going about our business. We're going to take our steps, and we're going to do it regardless of what the recommendations are for, as you pointed out, the dear leader, Donald Trump, and their administration as far as the standards that they need to open up society.
That's exactly what they're doing. It's like who can cater to or placate Donald Trump's ego and demands the most. And if it means reopening without having satisfied even phase 1 of the guidelines, they're willing to do it. I mean, they're willing to risk their own citizens' lives. And this is the point that I think everybody should remember. The fact that Trump is calling for states to reopen, it has nothing to do with anybody in that state, not one person. He is doing it for what he feels will be in his best political interest. And whether it works or not, and I fear it won't, but whether it does or not, nobody should forget the fact that he was willing to risk your life in order to get reelected.
But, Doug, also it's a thing where he wants to have his cake and eat it, too, because he puts it out there that, yeah, you have no problem with states wanting to reopen. And then 5 seconds later, he'll get up there on national TV and say, I told Brian Kemp that I don't think it's time. I told Brian Kemp I don't think they should do it. I mean, it's basically insanity, and it's nonsensical, the approach that Donald Trump takes. But I guess, I'm preaching to the choir here when it comes to, Donald Trump's approach to all this, right?
Doug, I want to bring this up because I think this is very important. It's one of the things that really ticks me off the most about this pandemic and what right-wingers are doing. We have over 1 million cases now in this country. Mm-hmm. We are approaching 60,000 deaths in just a few months. People forget that. It's only been a few months, and we've got close to 60,000. There are still right-wing buffoons out there that are comparing this to the flu. And there are people that say, well, it's only about 2 times more deadly than the flu. First of all, it's completely factually inaccurate. What would you say? And by the way, it's not just everyday people. It's also people that are on the radio that have a platform that are saying these types of things. What would you say to those people?
Basically, if they called the show, I might take the Shapiro approach and call him an idiot and hang up on him. There comes a point where there's only so much stupidity you can tolerate. And this whataboutism, when it comes to the flu, it's like, as you say, 3 months, 60,000 deaths, and that's with social distancing. I mean, there's no comparison between this and the flu. And they keep trying to make it because Trump does. Because people on the radio do. Rush Limbaugh originally said it was the common cold.
Yeah, there were a lot of people on Fox News that said that, and Rush Limbaugh said that as well. And it's unbelievable to me because I think there has to be some sort of personal responsibility. Let's talk about personal responsibility.
Real quick, Brian, further to Chris's point about him, praising Brian Kemp and then dumping on him, this is why we need a leader. We don't need some guy who goes out there and spews whatever the last person talked to him said.
Yes.
Right. No, I agree. 100%. Not to go back to the disinfectant, but I just want to bring up one other thing, if I may. I think people forget this, Doug. Donald Trump doesn't only represent Trump supporters. Sadly, he represents us all. He represents smart people. He represents, average intelligence. And he represents the ignorant, dumb people. Now, there was a man in Kansas, I saw the press conference yesterday, who chugged down a cleaning product, almost killed himself. Now, do I feel bad?
We're having press conferences.
Yeah,
I mean, this is the world we are living in right now.
Listen.
We're having press conferences about people consuming disinfectant.
Now, do
I
feel bad for this guy? Absolutely not. He's an absolute dope. Now, there's a difference between a 4-year-old, drinking some disinfectant and a grown man. This was a grown man, okay? He's a moron. He's an idiot. And I'll just say it. If he killed himself, it's his fault because he's a dope. With that being said, Doug, the president was asked the other day, do you take any responsibility for the fact that these types of poison cases are up 40% throughout the country? And his response was no. He doesn't take any responsibility. How does the man not take any? He's the one who brought it up.
I know. Well, I did a thing on Saturday about a question he was asked by NPR's Yamiche Alcindor, and it either referred to a story that was reported or a similar one, but I think she was getting at the story of the New York bar owner, Joe Joyce, who loved Trump, took his word for it, told his daughter, well, if the lamestream media is telling us there's a pandemic, why should we believe him? The guy booked a cruise, he got the coronavirus, he came home, and he died. And when Yamiche Alcindor asked Trump about that, his response was, well, a lot of people love Trump. A lot of people love me. I guess I'm doing something right because I'm here. I mean, that is a textbook sociopath, incapable of expressing empathy. And, I mean, I was just so disgusted by that response. When you're told that someone died because they loved and trusted you, and the first thing that comes to your mind is, well, a lot of people love me. I mean, that is just a man that unfit doesn't begin to describe who he is.
I wonder how much his wife loves him, though, because they don't even sleep in the same bed together. But anyway, that's another story. That's another story for another show. Go ahead, Chris.
So, Doug, we've been exposed, obviously, for the past couple weeks plus to these Donald Trump clown shows that are, disguised as coronavirus response update press conferences. Yesterday, we went through the wackiness of they canceled it, then they put it back on, and then they canceled it, and then they put it back on again. And Trump went out there, and, of course, we saw what we ended up seeing. What do you make of these press conferences that are out on a daily basis? Obviously, there are those of us out there that understand we need to get real information. We need to get facts when it comes to Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, Dr. Hahn, and, of course, the director of the CDC. There are people that we need to hear from. But when it comes to Donald Trump at this point, what are you thinking that we actually need to hear from the President of the United States when it comes to these press conferences?
Well, what we need to hear from the President of the United States is, A, factual and truthful information regarding the coronavirus. Unfortunately, Trump can't do that because he is an insufferable, malignant narcissist. He has to make everything about himself. So he goes out there, and you're right, he exploits these virus hearings and turns them into his Klan rallies. And he beats up on the media, and he beats up on his opponents. And it's like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be a virus briefing. But he can't help himself. He is who he is. He is all about himself, and that's all he will ever be. And that's why there's been a lot of discussion of late as to whether or not the networks should even cover these. And kudos to CNN. What they do is when he starts rambling on, they go back to their panel, and they don't come back until one of the experts is speaking.
I want to talk to you about one of those experts because I have some criticism for Dr. Birx, and I think she's in a very difficult spot, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for her. I really do. With that being said, when he brought up that disinfectant thing, and you saw the look on her face, she didn't want to talk about it. And then she was asked in the media the next day about that, and she said, well, that was just a dialogue. Excuse me, that is an inappropriate time to have a conversation or a dialogue about something, especially when the president has absolutely no idea what he is talking about. I understand she is in a tough spot, and she wants to, in a way, not disrespect the president, probably so she can keep her job. But don't you think it would be more important for her to get up there and say, listen, the president shouldn't have brought that up. There's no scientific or medical evidence to support the fact that disinfectant right now can help you with the coronavirus. I would have preferred if the president brought that up to me behind closed doors. I think she is doing an injustice to the country by trying to appease the president of the United States and not calling it for what it is, which was stupidity on the president's part.
Oh, I agree 100%. And here again, we can point to the media in their lack of sufficient follow-up. I mean, it would be nice after she gave that response. Oh, he was just having a dialogue with himself. Well, you know, Dr. Birx, that's not the place to have a dialogue with yourself and listen to the voices in your head. And then I would follow up with, why is it so hard for you to admit that this guy is unfit, he doesn't know what he's talking about, he's putting you and the other experts in an awkward position that you actually have to come on television and tell people to not drink bleach? Why can't you just call him for what he is? Are you that afraid of losing your job? And I mean, I know that sounds harsh, but like you say, letting her get away with making excuses and defending the most indefensible person in this country is not doing the country a service.
There's two phrases, right, Doug, that aren't out there right now. They are profiles in courage, right? And there's also speaking truth to power. There's a lot of people around Donald Trump that just can't do that.
No, I think we're all in agreement here. Sorry, Doug, we didn't have a right-wing conservative talk show host to debate you today, but we'll work on that for next week.
We'll get it going.
Yeah, but yep. Doug, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Always appreciate it. Look forward to your show on Saturday on KDWN, which is 2 to 4 p.m. Me and Chris, we're always listening, my friend. You're not only do we agree with a lot of what you say politically, but you're also a very entertaining guy to listen to on the radio.
I like the confrontation.
Well, you know what
I enjoy.
Doug,
I like it when he gets a chance to go at people.
Doug gets it. It's also about entertaining people and making people laugh. Yeah. And I think some right-wing hacks who do call themselves radio hosts don't understand that. Doug, I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on.
Always my pleasure, guys. Be safe.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Appreciate it. That's Doug Basham.